Kyle here from allmeanreviews.blogspot.com. Doing band today. I don't know, the plans are, today I'm going to do a video about Clann Zu, this band from Australia, defunct a long time ago, but I'm working on the Reign of Kindo, and I'm working on the plans. I've done the plans video just to say, so the Reign of Kindo is my next sort of earmark, and I'm going to include some of their history and the stuff before it maybe, because I have some of that stuff. But my other thought is I want to start getting into some of the more key bands, probably. A combination. I want to start getting into more key bands in the, alternative progressive rock, especially. But the Deer Hunter is the one I really want to focus on after Kindo's done, I think. Because they're an important band to me, and I have a large collection. I've never done a video or videos. I don't know. It might be more than one, depending on. I don't know. I also might do, after I'm done with Marillion, a Kevin Gilbert series, just like I'm doing with Marillion and ranking them. But after that, time allows. The thought is I want to maybe just go ahead and take some of the bigger players in this kind of so-called genres. Umbrella genres. I'm not going to be talking about Tool or Radiohead. Here's my Tool and Radiohead review. I don't like any of their music, really. So, I like Tool's cover of Led Zeppelin's No Quarter, and I like Planet Telex from Radiohead and some of the instrumental bits, but yeah, the Mars Volta, Coheed and Cambria, Muse, I imagine. Then I may even delve into the Decemberists and some of the other more popular, larger, more widespread and widely known artists in this kind of umbrella of, 21st century art rock, progressive rock, art pop, So that's sort of my mentality of recently after doing the Marillion videos, and then I still want to do a lot of the little bands like Clann Zu, but I may start doing ranking, like individual videos like I've been doing with Marillion too, so. But then I've been able to get into it. The reason why I chose Clann Zu is because they only have, like Jellyfish and like Receiving End of Sirens, they only have 2 albums. Another band that's related, though, I'll just add, is Murder by Death, who doesn't have 2 albums, but I think I'll probably end up trying to do a Murder by Death album, or Murder by Death video soon too. So they have 2 albums. 2 full-lengths, proper full-lengths. Rua, which came out officially in 2002, and Black Coats and Bandage, which came out in 2004, I believe, yeah. I've seen different dates for some of these. Now, they also have an EP, which called just a self-titled EP that I'm pretty sure I've heard, but the sad thing is, I'd have to check YouTube, and I should have done that today, but I've been occupied by a lot of stuff, and haven't had a lot of time, especially the last few days, so I may just revisit this because I do really love Clann Zu, but that's all they really did. They had this short window of time. They only were on from like 99 to 2004, 2005. And then their lead singer, the guy who's I think he writes at least the lyrics, a lot of the music, Declan DeBarra, he has done some solo music, and I remember checking some of his music out years ago, like around the time I got into them, probably around 2000, I want to say 2008, 2009, somewhere in that window of time, late 2000s, long after they had broken up. And he's British, or he's Irish rather, but they're a band that's based in Australia. So the thing is, when I got into them, I got suggested, I saw the name actually, it was really a suggestion. The band Kiss Kiss I loved around 2006 and 2007. I got introduced to them and seeing people's comments, and they were reminded of a few bands, one of them being Clann Zu, another one being Murder by Death, actually. And I would call their music, I wouldn't call it progressive rock exactly, but it's definitely artsy. Art rock and post-rock, but not post-rock in the sense that it doesn't sound like Explosions in the Sky. It sounds more like soundtracky music at points, but really what differs from them from even some of the Explosions in the Sky sounding bands even is not only the vocals, but the vocals. Declan DeBarra's voice is very blue collar, folksy, country westerny in a sense, although at points he almost sounds like Mike Patton. But there's the use of violin is a big part of their sound, and listening to both these albums again today, it's probably been at least a couple years since I listened to them. Every so often I'll go back and be on a kind of a kick to want to listen to it, because it's like Jellyfish that you can get through them in a short window of time, and they're consistent. I prefer the second album, Black Coats and Bandages. I prefer Rua over that one slightly. I probably listened to today maybe slightly even more than I used to, but they're still pretty close. But it's just haunting. Rua is like the definition of Rua. It's kind of a sad definition. It can be a prelude to divulging a secret, stating something personal, or requesting something untoward. I know it has like Irish. I think it has Irish origin, or New Zealand actually. A pit used for storage. So there's a couple different meanings, but it's got like a crow on the cover. It's kind of iconic for them. Whatever. Man, there's a lot of good tracks on here. Words for Snow, the opening track. Hope This Day. All That You've Ever Known. It's very kind of cinematic. It has just this sort of haunting, mystical element at points. The dynamics. You're listening to a dead man speak. Again, it's almost, kind of, I wouldn't call it witchcraft or Wiccan or dark arts, but there's definitely sort of a spiritual and almost kind of communication with the deceased that I kind of get from it, and again, it has a Western element to a point. The thing is, this record I think is a little more consistent. Every Day is really catchy too. There is a pop element to some of their music, but it's really just Gavin's vocals, the violin, some of the distorted guitars, like a lot of post rock, and you can call it, I don't know if you call it sludge, or it's drone, not sludgy droning, a little bit, but the comparison one person made was they sounded a little too much like Dredge, which if you think about it, they came up not that long after. I mean, this album came out in 2002. Their debut EP came out in 2000. I mean, they probably never heard Dredge. Even if they had, it was probably more of Dredge's influences than theirs. But so this album, Black Coats and Bandages, came out what it was 2 years later, and I would say, well, I don't like it maybe quite as much as Rua, the debut. It has probably their best song in One Bedroom Apartment. You can barely read the track list there. It's in cursive and stuff, but that is it's like poetry. Declan DeBar is a poet a lot of ways. He, like Fish from Marillion and some other lyricists. Like Gavin from Dredge, or Drew from Dredge, whoever writes the lyrics in Dredge. Black Coats and Bandages kind of invokes this like an image, a mentality, a tone of like sort of war, and a little bit of darkness and death, unfortunately. Which having gone through some of that right now recently with a family member passing away, it's sort of fitting and ironic at the same time. But One Bedroom Apartment is just like he's just riffing. It's like telling the story about like a relationship that went bad and some other things with his life. This guy, it sounds like almost. It's definitely very like getting all your emotions and thoughts out. Like just it's almost like therapy in a lot of ways. But I'll say this: there's a few other tracks on here. The fourth track right before it, it's called like Deton or something like that. Let's see here. It's Tian Ban. I don't know. That's a terrific song. The mood on that song is amazing. In fact, those are probably the best two songs on here, and they're back to back. It's weird in the middle of the record. I would have probably ended the album with One Bedroom Apartment actually, but there's some other highlights on this record. It's just this record uses more piano and more bluesy guitar. I think this is more cinematic. And the violin takes more of a prominent role, but they still use some violin in this record, and there's maybe a little bit more of a Morricone and a Western element. So, so I mentioned Murder by Death. The other band that sort of comes to mind after Murder by Death sort of changed a little bit and doing post-rock, and these guys broke up, was Crippled Black Phoenix. Unfortunately, Crippled Black Phoenix, it's more quantity over quality at points, but they have some pretty good records. Maybe it's I have one of them. I own at least one of the records, but... So, yeah, they existed from that short window of time. They're from Australia. This CD actually has a QuickTime video. I don't know if it would work now because of the version, but it says, I've never watched that. I should check that out at some point soon. But But I would just say, so Declan DeBarra has done a little solo music. I know he toured here, but the band, I don't know if they ever did, but a friend of mine did see him on tour. But that was not that long after. I want to say, let me check Rate Your Music. I want to say it was like a couple of years after they ended, basically, and after Black Coats and Bandages came out, 2004. Yeah, his one solo, or no, he's got a couple solo albums, but last one was in 2011. So, Song of a Thousand Birds, I used to own this as A Fire to Scan the Sun. That was Song of a Thousand Birds was 2006. Fire to Scan the Sun was 2008, and Fragments, Footprints, and the Forgotten was 2011. From my memory of his solo music, it was more singer-songwriter folk music. There were slowcore, yeah. I think he was probably not trying to do exactly to do Clann Zu again. As some people call him Zoo, but he was also a member of some group called Non-Intentional Lifeform, because his last record was in 2011. No, that was in the 90s before Zoo, so I've never heard this either, but I'd be curious because he was the singer. But the other noteworthy thing about him, I think I mentioned in a previous video, was that he also has done screenwriting of all things, maybe some soundtrack, but mostly screenwriting. You look on his Wikipedia page in Hollywood for television shows, and most recently a Netflix series called Iron Fist, and The Witcher. So, and then also on the CW, the originals and the spin-off from The Vampire Diaries. He did some of the screenwriting. Interesting. I mean, you make a living, you want to work in Hollywood. You probably figured that's where he could. He found his calling. I don't know. Maybe he did that also in Australia before. He must have moved to Hollywood. Anyway, this is the short and the summary of my experience with Clann Zu. I always think that they're one of the most underrated bands. Yes, if you're a Dredge fan, especially the early Dredge, I would say that the similarities the most are with Leitmotif and LCL at points, but there's a lot of differences. And like I said, like the Morricone post-rock, alt-western post-rock, and there's not a shortage of expletives at points, but again, it's like poetry. Stuff like that, I mean, they're not well known, and I'll talk about, like I said, they're sort of contemporary of sorts. It's a different story of the band Murder by Death, who, again, I trace back to my discovery of Kiss Kiss, who I probably can trace to someone else. I forget where I found out about them. But I traced my discovery of Kiss Kiss and some people comparing them. There's some other bands I kind of think of in that same category. The Paper Chase, and there's one other band that... But Paper Chase were always more avant-garde. The humor was out there. I mean, there's not really much humor with Clann Zu. He does do some sort of rapping or sampling at points, but whereas I think it's very kind of more serious, somber, therapeutic music, whereas the Paper Chase or stuff, and Kiss Kiss is kind of in the middle. Kiss Kiss and the Paper Chase, and I'm forgetting the other band I know people that... there's a humor element to those bands, but yeah, it's a sort of a subgenre of sorts. But Murder by Death, there's not really humor in their music either. So I don't know if the humor element just spun off of some of the similar bands, but yeah. So that's my take on Zu or Clann Zu, and unfortunately they've just become a footnote. I'd love to see either of these records come out on vinyl. I don't know how well Declan's doing in Hollywood. Maybe he could push that. I know he's on Twitter and stuff, and compared to some people that are in bands that end up sort of going, incommunicado, like David Tobias from Napes and Androids and stuff like that. He does, I believe, have some activity on social media, on Twitter. So I don't know. So, but anyway, thank you for watching. What's your take on Clann Zu if you've never heard them? Again, a recommendation, especially if you are a fan of Dredge or you like post-rock. But thanks for watching. Give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.